Hi, it's Harsha. I hope you're having a great day. I'm here with my good friend, Brannon Sirat, an accomplished writer and book editor who's helping me with my book. Hi, Brannon.
Hi.
Brannon has kindly agreed to share some thoughts about writing and editing a book. So if we go straight into it, Brannon, how difficult is it to actually write a book and why should anybody consider doing it?
That is straight into it for sure. I think it's difficult enough that most people want to have written a book. And once they actually start, they don't want to actually write the book. Um, and it's hard for in different ways for different people, right? Like sometimes the difficulty of it is the technical aspect and what do I say where and how do I structure this and is it good? Is it objectively good? Um, I think for most people, though, the challenge in writing is the vulnerability of it. It's really just putting yourself out there because you can always delete a blog, in theory, I hope that mine have been deleted. You can always delete a blog, you can always pull down other channels, but like a book kind of gets out there and away from you. And especially if it's in print, you don't really know who's buying it and where they're taking it and what they're doing with it. It's really forever. And so when you're putting your ideas out there, your opinions, your thoughts, your experience, your personal stories, all of that, like kind of slaps you in the face with some existential crises, like multiple. So I find that that's the hardest thing for most people, even though like we like to say it's just the challenge, the technical challenge of writing the book. Why should you do it is also really, really personal, right? Like it's almost easier to dial that back and say, why should you not write a book? And I would say, don't write it if you want to make your millions in one go. That's probably not worth all of said crises. And then don't do it out of obligation, right? If somebody tells you like you should have a book, you should write a book. You have to have a book to further your brand. You need to have a book in today's economy, like whatever. You're just going to be adding to the noise out of a sense of obligation. So if people are telling you that, kind of sit with why that might be and if it's worth all of said crises to be able to actually like get a good book out into the world that does represent you well, does tell your story in a way that will accomplish all of those other things. Sit with it and make sure you feel really good about it and that you're close to the story before you just take off into the wild world of writing because that's stressful.
I think that's a great point you make, Brandon, about it's hard. I think nobody who's going to write a book should realize this is going to be an easy process. But on the other hand, I think there's something very satisfying about writing, which is very different from creating a podcast or a YouTube video. And I think because it's hard, then people do recognize this is a serious accomplishment.
Yeah.
And whether it's 30,000 words, 40,000 words, whatever, to actually sit down and write that is not easy. And actually what you're seeing, the final product, is probably after all the editing or the notes which somebody like yourself will give. And I know you're doing it in a nice way, but you're still thinking, why is Brannon telling me this? I really do not need to do this. But on the other hand, I think it's really understanding where the why is. And for me,
Yes.
actually, when I do get in the flow, I think, wow, this is actually a fun process in some respects because you're sharing your story, you're getting in the flow, and actually doing something hard. Once you actually,
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, I've written over 20,000 words, and if I look back, thinking, how did I get there? But actually, it was doing a little bit every day. So I think there's something very satisfying about that process.
Yep.
But I do agree with you. Really think carefully about why you are doing this and don't do it for the wrong reasons because the end product will just not be very good. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think that's why you've been able to connect to that sense of flow. Like it's partly knowing why you're doing it and doing it because it's something close to you, which is the benefit we have in nonfiction, right? In fiction, there's no constraints. You can write whatever, whenever, in any genre, any style, and it just kind of is all over the board. But when you're writing nonfiction, it really is close to you, and something that if you're tapping into that and able to be vulnerable and really know why you're doing it, it flows out of you. The other benefit you have going is doing that in community with other people. And so because it's this process that is shared, you can tap into that flow way easier than the person who thinks they have to go like in a cave and, type forever. It's no.
Yeah, no,
It's the community, and it's being able to tap into the why that unlocks the flow that makes it feel a lot easier than, I'm going to write a book now. It's the great American novel. It's my bucket list. It's take all that pressure off and just tap into the thing that you want to say. And it's so much better.
No, totally agree.